Hey Flower Tribe, it's Kelly Lehman from Cranberry Fields Flower Farm, and I wanted to give you a quick hydrangea tip for some summer care. So here it is, it's August, and we're in my New Jersey flower farm and my secret garden in the background. You can kind of see the secret garden back there. And I wanted to tell you some of the things I'm doing with my hydrangeas this time of year. So first of all, we just had like this huge drought. Like we had these, days with 100-degree weather and 95-degree weather. It went back to back for 2 weeks. We had very little rain, and I'm having a hard time keeping up with the watering. So I want to show you some of the things I'm doing to solve that problem, and then I'm going to show you some of the things that I'm doing to harvest my hydrangeas and some little florist tips that I have that I think you're going to like. So let's check this out. So here's my Annabelle hydrangea. This is what the row looks like. These beautiful flowers used to be a white, like a creamy white when they came into bloom, and now they're this beautiful deep shade of like lime green. They're absolutely stunning, and this is a super easy hydrangea to start with if you're just getting into the hydrangea game. So this is what the arrangement looks like that we built out using mostly limelight. I'm sorry, these are the Annabelle hydrangea. In the back, I always have limelight hydrangea on my mind. The back, you can see my back garden there. That big white mama plant, that's my limelight hydrangea. I absolutely love them, but I don't like to cut those blooms when they're in the white stage because they flop in the vase. The same thing with these Annabelle hydrangea. When they're in the white creamy stage, when they first come into bloom, they have a really crummy vase life. They just flop super fast. So one of my best florist power tips for you guys is to cut your Annabelle and your Incredible, because Incredible hydrangeas are basically, they look the same. They have sturdier stems than the Annabelle, but they have a very similar, growing habit, and they look like these blooms, but the stems are sturdier. They're from proven winners. Same thing. I like to cut them in the green stage when they're semi-dried. So the Annabelles are one of the first ones to bloom, and so they're one of the first ones to kind of dry out on the stem. Limelight is going to turn this beautiful green color, not quite as deep a green, but still a shade of green, and then it's going to have some like little maroon tips on them later on, and that's the best time to cut that for dried flower arrangements, or even like fresh cut flower arrangements, because they're going to stay longer in the vase. And then just to give you a little perspective of where I'm standing, in the back over here, that's another giant mama limelight hydrangea. And those brown specks you see like in the middle, those were blooms I didn't get a chance to cut off this year, so they look crummy. It didn't harm the plant. It definitely did not help the plant. So if you can deadhead your hydrangeas, it always kind of helps the plant, because then they don't have to have the plant go to seed, and it also helps them not have to support those heavy blooms. But if you don't get a chance to, a lot of times I can't get to all my hydrangea deadheading. It's okay, the plant will still bloom, and it's not that big of a deal. And sometimes I actually even leave these blooms on in fall, especially on my Annabelle, because it adds some winter interest, but I usually try to at least deadhead them at the end of winter to kind of take that extra weight off the plant. They don't have to worry about supporting it. So anyway, so back to this arrangement over here. So I've got a load of these beautiful dried, like semi-dried Annabelle hydrangea in here. And then I've got some pinky winkies that we cut yesterday. Here's some of the flowers that we cut yesterday from the garden. I did a live giving you some great tips about some of these flowers. These are my black-eyed Susans, and I let you know that they're a huge self-seeder. These are the flowers that I showed you yesterday. These are the Rose of Sharons. Usually these don't have a great vase life, but I did keep them in my florist refrigerator last night. So that's another florist power tip for you. If you want to use your Rose of Sharon flowers in arrangements, know that if you keep them like on the kitchen counter, they're probably only going to last maybe a day or two, and then they flop. But if you want to cut them and then use them for like a dinner party or to bring to a friend's house, and you're not going to be going there for a few days, pop them in the refrigerator to keep them fresh, and then they're going to last a little bit longer. And I made sure that I cut all of these early morning. That's a great flower farmer power tip. When you cut them in the afternoon or when they're exhausted, a lot of times they look more like this. They look a little dehydrated. Most of these black-eyed Susans from yesterday looked like this because we had cut them at 11 o'clock. We just ran out of time. We were cutting. And most of them looked like this when we cut them, but then we popped them into the refrigerator, and most of them came back. Look how beautiful these strong stems are this morning. So yesterday, once again, if you saw yesterday's live, you saw most of them looking like this. Now they all perked up. They look amazing. They got a nice, cool break from the heat. They sat in some water and they perked back up. But your best bet is to always cut in the morning. And guys, I made you a boatload. Well, not a boatload. I think there's 4. I'm exaggerating. I made you a whole bunch of online guides teaching you how to grow beautiful fresh cut flowers in your own garden and then how to arrange them. So if you're ever interested, I always have them linked in all of my videos and descriptions below, so you can check that out. So now I want to get to the fun part. So this is like the arrangement, like I told you, that we built out from some of these flowers. We've got a little bit of Queen Anne's lace in here. I've got another hydrangea, I think it's called Tardiva. We've got the Pinky Winky. And so these guys are looking great. And what's going to happen is in this arrangement, these guys are going to dry out. These Annabella hydrangeas are going to dry out once that water evaporates. And I want to show you what that looks like. So this is a smaller arrangement that I made. I actually made this only like 3 days ago. So let me pull the camera away a little bit, give you a better perspective. All right, these guys actually dried out in only 2 days. And what I notice happens is that a lot of times, oh, you're doing stuff. Oh, you tried the hydrangea propagation earlier and it worked? Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. I'm sorry, I got a little distracted. Hey guys, let me know where you're viewing this from in this great big beautiful world, and let me know what the weather's like in your gardens. Even if I don't reply to the comment right now, I do read them after, and I love just seeing where you guys were viewing from, and I love seeing what the weather was like in your garden. So put it in comments if you don't mind, and give me a thumbs up if you're getting any value from this video. So anyway, so I cut these just, like a couple days ago. Believe it or not, these are totally dried out already. Even though there's still water in the vase, these are actually crispy. But what I notice is that sometimes when I have these, dried flowers, and this is going to be a beautiful dried flower arrangement in just a while, just like a couple days, sometimes the flowers start to fade a bit. They're not that vibrant green anymore. Even though they look good, they don't look spectacular. So to make them look spectacular, if they do start to fade, and then you can have like an arrangement in your house for like, like the next year, I take some like florist, it's called like, this one's called Just for Flowers, but there's tons of them. They're on Amazon. They're all over the place. Probably AC Moore, probably Michael's. I have an Amazon shop page that I always link below. You can take a look. I think I have this in my shopping list that says like fun florist tools to use. So this is for flowers. It's not spray paint like regular spray paint you get in Home Depot. So it's called Just for Flowers. It's to spray on fresh cut flowers, and this is a really fun tip that we used here at my florist. So when these start to fade their color, this color is called green. Let's see, I think it's called fresh green, and it comes in all different colors: purple, blue, red. And I just shake up the can and I give it a little spray, and you can tell it just brightens up the blooms, and you can see kind of like side by side. So this one's obviously much more, brighter than the one over here. And then it's just a really great tip for your dried flower arrangements. Sometimes florists will use these before a wedding to brighten some things up. And so, yeah, I love that. But it also comes in, there's like a hydrangea blue color is terrific. If you've got like Endless Summer or Nikos, and you have like a dried flower arrangement that you made out of those, and it's starting to look a little faded after a while, just give it a shot of that florist spray paint. And so that's one of my favorite tips. I love that. And I want to show you what some of these, a lot of you have asked me, what do I do about my hydrangeas? They're browning. They look terrible. I think my hydrangea's dying. And here's the story. These guys are not dying. They just got fried. So with these temperatures, I've been trying to keep up with the watering. I usually, oh, you're checking in from Sweden. I love that. Oh, see, that makes me so happy. Thanks so much for that. It's little things in life, right? So these guys are not dying. They look kind of crummy from down here, but you can tell the plant itself is totally thriving. But I think what happened was it just got too much sunlight. And so I normally, the watering tip that I love to give, a lot of people have asked me how I water my hydrangeas, is I water my hydrangeas at the base. So I will water them at the base down here. I'll usually just, like give them a good soaking when the soil feels like it's not wet. So you want to make sure that you don't drown your hydrangeas. A lot of times people will soak their hydrangeas so much that they wind up drowning them. And unfortunately, when a hydrangea has too much water, it has the same symptoms as when it has too little water. It looks kind of wilted, it looks kind of droopy. So I make sure that I come down here, I kind of feel like the soil around the base of the plant. I dig my finger down to like the knuckle, second knuckle. And if it's dry, I give it a good deep root watering. And then if it feels like it's wet, you know, and when I did that knuckle test, if it feels like it's wet, I leave it alone. But here's the thing, when temperatures are like in the hundreds and 95 degrees for like day after day after day, I will overhead water these. And I've been doing that. And I usually don't recommend overhead watering. A lot of times when you overhead water, especially in the afternoon, you get all sorts of fungal diseases and brown spots on the leaves. But if you have a week or two where these guys are just getting pummeled by those crazy temperatures, I would recommend overhead watering, but in the morning. And so I've been doing that, and that's why these guys look so spectacular. I mean, it's been like absolutely insane, the heat that we've had, and they were starting to get crispy. Like they were starting to just, well, this guy is crispy because he actually has a snapped stem, so he stopped getting moisture from the plant altogether. But a lot of them, you can tell, were just starting to dry up and not look very good. So I started doing an overhead watering like every morning when those, if I knew it was going to be 100 degrees, I would come out here at like, 7, 8 a.m. and I would overhead water all my hydrangeas, even the limelights. And once again, I usually never overhead water. That's usually a very big no-no because you don't want to get, all those brown spots all the time. But I was overhead watering them, and that's why these guys look really, really good. And guys, the other thing is sometimes Mother Nature gives us rain at night. And your flowers will get an overhead watering at night, and they will wind up getting those brown spots on those leaves. It's not that big of a deal, to be honest with you. So don't panic if you're like, oh my gosh, I've got brown spots on my leaves. It's not that big of a deal. It usually doesn't destroy the plant. It just looks a little unsightly, and you'll notice in fall, almost all the leaves are going to look like that, because temperatures start to cool down at night. We have dew on the plant, and then they just start to get some of those fungal things on the leaves, and it's not that big of a deal. If you think that the entire plant is not thriving and it looks sickly, it might be an actual disease. So that's a whole nother story. So if you're not sure, you can always I always tell people, if you're not sure if your, plant needs, some help or needs, to be sprayed with something, bring a clipping, take a little clipping off and bring it over to like your local garden center. And those people usually know whether or not it's, something little trivial or whether it's something that you might want to spray it with an actual product. So let me think what else I wanted to tell you guys. I'm going to also use some of these hydrangea stems. Basically what I do, guys, it's so easy to make a hydrangea arrangement because you can just use just those flowers from that one specific plant to make an arrangement. So I can actually just build out this entire arrangement just by using these flower heads. So even if I didn't have the pinky winkies and I didn't have these Rosa Sharons, it would still look spectacular. So it's like a real no-brainer if you want to learn how to arrange flowers. Like if you want to build up your confidence, start building out arrangements with just one type of hydrangea. You basically strip off, come out in the morning, strip off the leaves, get a bunch of them in your hand like this, put a rubber band around them and plunk them in some water, and you've just accomplished your very first flower arrangement. I mean, it's a real confidence builder. But what I'll also do, here's another great tip. Sometimes I'll have a hydrangea like this, and like half of it looks beautiful, the other half got burnt up. I can still use this in an arrangement. So what I'll do is I'll come in here and I'll just kind of pick off the section that was kind of burnt with my nail. I'll get rid of the crispy section, and I'll kind of get rid of these crispies. And then I'll hide, see how it kind of has like a hole? I'll kind of hide that hole in the middle of the arrangement where like another flower is covering it, and you only see the pretty part. So, you might come out here and be like, oh, look, my hydrangeas look like this. Oh, that's such a shame. I can't even enjoy them. You can. You can just kind of cover, get rid of the crummy stuff and, just use what sometimes you got to work with what you got. And so work with what you got, and then you'll have like a beautiful flower arrangement, even though it might have gotten a little bit crispy. So those are the tips for today, guys. I'm going to try to give you as much hydrangea love as I can in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'm just on this like hydrangea rampage right now because I have so many blooming, and I feel like I'm out here every day doing something with them. And so I want to share as much of this knowledge as I can with you. I feel very blessed to have these flowers, and I would love to share my knowledge with you. I think it's just, I just love having our flower tribe together, and I love the comments that you guys make, and I love the questions that you've been asking, because I base all of my YouTube videos and all of my podcasts on them. So you can check out my podcasts. They're also in links below, along with those flower courses to teach you how to grow these flowers in your own backyard. Really simple steps, guys. I really broke it down into really training wheel steps as far as like beginner gardening tips. So I hope you guys enjoy that. And yeah, let me know, please, where you're viewing this from in this great, big, beautiful world. I really do get a kick out of that. I mean, I read them off to Sheldon at night. I'm like, this person was from Bosnia and this person was from New Jersey. And oh, there was a question. Let me think who this was from. It was from someone in New Jersey. Your last name was Collins. Oh, I wanted to remember your name. But your question was that you have endless summer hydrangea, and those are back here. I've got some endless summer hydrangea against that wall. I know it's kind of hard to see them. Your question was, can I still cut off the blooms from them? It's August 4th here in New Jersey. So here's the thing. These Annabelle hydrangeas, these blooms came in like spring, like mid-spring. They came in on what's known as these fresh green stems. So the stems that the endless summer hydrangea comes in on are this year's stems, so it's considered old wood. So next year's blooms for your endless summer, you know, the guys over here, I'm trying not to lose internet connection. Sometimes when I walk too fast, I lose my internet connection for you guys. But the endless summer over here, those blooms are starting to be put in place right now. So if you start like cutting a lot of them back, like if you cut back like, you know, like a third of this plant right now, you're going to be cutting back a third of next year's first set of flowers. Now, endless summer is awesome because they're going to give you a second flush of flowers towards the end of summer. So, you know, that's something to consider. But if you can, I will come in here and see some. I have like just a couple flower heads on there now. I will actually trim those. I'm going to use those. I'm probably going to do a YouTube live video tomorrow on those. I'm going to use those blooms in my bouquets, but I'm going to make sure that I don't cut the stems super long. I'm going to choose to cut like smaller stems, and I'm going to push my luck. I hope I don't lose you guys. I'm going to wind up cutting these stems. I hope I didn't get too fuzzy just now. I'm going to cut them short because if I cut them really long, you can tell, see these little nubs? This is next year's flowers being put in place right now. So you don't want to cut off next, this is like next, you know, like next July's flower. So I don't want to cut him off. I'm going to cut above that, and I'm going to make some short, beautiful arrangements. And so that's the story with your endless summer. So that was a great question. Was it Michelle Collins? I think it was Michelle Collins, but it was a terrific question. So endless summer, I'd be careful after August 1st, you know, with giving it any kind of major cutting, but you can cut those blooms, just cut them on shorter stems and make sure that you leave next year's blooms in place. And so that's my best advice for the endless summer, and I do love them. I'm looking forward to having a second flush of flowers on these guys. I hardly had any blooms from the first set because they were frozen off from that. We had like a spring snow. So this is what my endless summer looked like. I know a lot of people were, you know, a little frustrated this year because a lot of their endless summer didn't bloom because a lot of us got, you know, like nailed with that snowstorm in March, and it just froze those buds off. If we, I mean, I have this whole row that I covered with a sheet, like a regular linen sheet, and those made it. Those were great. These guys, I just didn't get a chance to come out and cover in time, and they lit all those little buds I just showed you, they were all frozen off. But that's okay. Listen, it's not the end of the world. It's a hydrangea. It's a flower. You know, worse can happen. And I'm hoping that the second flush of flowers is going to come through now towards like, you know, the end of August. So I'm very hopeful. And if not, it will just, you know, come back hopefully next year. You know, that's just part of the gardening game, guys. It's not a big deal. Very few things in the garden are a big deal. I feel like God put these beautiful flowers here for us to enjoy and have peace. So enjoy your gardens. Don't stress out over them. And if you start to stress out over your flowers, just remember Kelly said, do not stress out over your flowers. It is not worth it. All right, guys. So I'm going to take you for a little walk down my Annabelle hydrangea row right now. I'm going to be quiet just for a couple minutes because I'd like to give you guys a few moments of peace from your very busy days. I know you're all out there working real hard. So take a few deep breaths. Be kind to yourself. Think of a few things that you're grateful for. And please take a few minutes just to relax and look at these beautiful flowers. Thanks again for joining me. Okay, Flower Tribe, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again for showing up. I really appreciate you guys so much, and I'll see you soon.